Wednesday, November 14th. I'm Scott.
I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, we discuss the X-Men. Let's do this.
Well, I came home today and I was greeted by a gigantic Geeknights canvas banner. Vinyl, not canvas. I wanted canvas, but it costs a lot more money.
Yeah, canvas plus, can be damaged much more easily than vinyl. I mean, even if we spill, the Thomas Jefferson's red wine port onto our canvas, vinyl banner, it'll just pour right off. If you drop it onto the canvas banner, we have to buy a new one. And you know what? One drop of that wine, if it was real and not fake, could pay for 100 of those banners.
Yeah,
so
the most expensive ones were like the silk, but they look crazy good and they're like this matte finish. But
silk screening.
Yeah, we don't need that so much. But yeah, for any of you who go to the New York Anime Festival, you're gonna see a lot of the early parts of swag and stuff because we've actually
we're halfway to the swag. Like we have this list of swag and we're sort of working towards getting all of it, but the most important swags are also the hardest to build up. But we're basically going to build up this mountain of swag and then dole it out slowly over time. And once that swag machine is turning, it won't stop. It's just a very big gear, so it takes a lot of energy before you get it rotating. But once it's rotating, it inertia and yeah.
And I can say this in the near future, and when I say near future, I mean next week or two, maybe 3. We're not going to have t-shirts for sale or anything, but we're probably going to have our first t-shirt design available for you to look at and tell us if you actually want to buy it.
Yeah.
I really like the direction it's going so far, so.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for us to set up an actual, web store because if you've never actually tried to set up, an online store.
And not just a crap I have a Cafe Press.
Yeah, not just Cafe Press, but an actual one. Let me tell you, every free program that does that sucks balls. And it really sucks is because a lot of them are designed for people who are really doing it, full on. And we're only kind of sort of doing it. We're not making a full online store. I don't need tracking of massive inventory or tax stuff. Well, I kind of need tax stuff, but I don't need the application to do it for me. And these things just have way more features than I ever need.
But yeah, I think for now, once we actually have this stuff, we'll probably just sell them at cons at price just until we figure out how we're going to deal with all that.
Yep.
So the moral of that is if you want to see the early bits of swag that are coming out, you might want to come to the New York Anime Festival.
Yeah, we're also doing a bunch of cool events there, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, we're doing the match game. We're doing another match game. We're doing our famous or infamous Gekiga panel.
But it's modified.
It's somewhat less rape-tastic and more informative and actually about Gekiga.
Yeah.
And
it helps that I have now, decided that I will use the word Gekiga more freely based on a book I read.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, maybe we'll talk about that at the panel.
Maybe.
It's going to be a good time.
Yeah.
We're going to record it. I don't know if we'll put it on the air.
Who knows?
Maybe not. You'll have to come and see it live.
Yeah. When is the New York Anime Festival?
It is December 7th, 8th, and 9th at the Jacob Javits Convention Center in New York City. We'll be there the whole time. We'll have a table. You can't miss us. Also,
don't miss it.
We have Dave, at least, and possibly Joel from Dave and Joel's Fast Karate for the Gentlemen. They're going to be our, I don't want to say personal staff, but they're basically attached to us, and we'll be using them for various things.
Did they know this?
Yeah, I made it quite clear.
All right.
And
we'll see how that goes.
And I'm paying for his badge. Indirectly.
Indirectly.
Plus, it turns out that at least one member of Anime World Order, possibly 2, will be there, though the second one is wishy-washy.
Very wishy-washy.
And the Ninja Consultants are going to be there.
Well, they live right there.
Well, they better be there. I mean, God.
If
there's an anime con within an hour of your house and you don't even at least go for one day, you got a problem. Unless you hate anime, I guess.
Yeah.
But then again, you can go to Otakon hating anime and not knowing what it is and still have a great time.
Yeah, you can go to, I guess it's hard to go to PAX, not like in games, but... Yeah.
I guess if you were a griefer.
Yeah, should I tell the French toast story?
I guess you could.
It's kind of a sad story.
It is sad. I feel bad for you. I really do.
So my work, right? Every Wednesday, the office buys food for everybody, and it's usually 90% of the time, 99% of the time, it's the same basket full of bagels and a cream cheese and like a stack of regular cheese and whatever. And they just put it on this counter, and everyone goes over on their own time and grabs a bagel on Wednesday morning, right? And then by Thursday, they're all hard as rocks, and they throw them out. Because no one knows what a Ziploc bag is. And I think I'm going to start bringing Ziploc bags to sort of bring bagels over to Thursday and get people pissed off at me. But anyway.
Curse him with his clever ingenuity.
Yeah, so far in the time I've been working there, which is almost a year, maybe like 6 to 8 months, something like that. Yeah, something like 8 months. They have twice ordered food specially, where the one person whose job it is to deal with this will send everyone an email with a menu. You read the menu and you reply with what you want, right? So last week she sent out an email and she's like, order stuff, we're gonna get good food this week instead of bagels. And I was like, woohoo! So I looked at the menu and I said French toast. Okay. And then I got an email the next day that was like, yeah guys, we're not going to do it because not enough people replied in time. We'll just get bagels this week and we'll do the food next week.
Aww.
So it's next week now. Now is next week, right? So yesterday there was an email in the morning that said, hey, order stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, right, ordering stuff. And I said, I'll do it in a few minutes. And then I forgot completely.
Oh, man.
And this morning I go into work. I'm expecting bagels because I totally forgot. And coworker walks by and is like, hey, Scott, did you order food? I'm like, shit, I forgot to order food. Damn it. Oh, well. And then I tried to eat one of my yogurts that I bought at the grocery, but at the bodega. And
Bodega.
Yeah, meanwhile, the bodegas in Soho are not cheap. The yogurt was $1, whereas yogurt in ShopRite is 33 cents.
Quarter yogurt.
Yeah, it's bullshit. But anyway, there were no spoons, so I have to bring a spoon to work tomorrow to eat my yogurt. So I'm like, oh, I didn't get my food. Oh, that sucks, right? But then make it worse, right? I walk over there a little later to where the food was, and there's this French toast sitting there. It's a styrofoam thing. It says French toast on it, just sitting there.
I guess the French toast, unlike the cake, was not a lie.
It was all alone, sitting there, all alone. And I was just like, oh, it's cold now. I'm not going to eat it. I'm just going to let it sit there. Oh.
That's like the saddest story I've ever heard.
It was pretty sad. They still ordered my French toast, even though I forgot to reorder it, and then I didn't eat it because no one told me. No one said anything. So the French toast went.
They probably walked by and they're thinking, that bastard. We made sure he got his toast. He didn't even eat it. That bastard.
Meanwhile, later in the day, apparently some people noticed that there was a French toast sitting there, and I think someone ate it.
Well, duh. If I'm walking through my office and I just see unattended French toast, I walk by an hour later and it's still there, I'm eating it.
It was actually even better. It was a closed styrofoam container that said French toast on it.
Actually, today, someone walked by and said, hey, there's some food left over from something over there. All right, so I ignore it. And 10 minutes later, I walk over there. And the leftover food was super fancy sushi.
Uh-huh.
So I ate enough to make myself feel a little sick. And then I went back to work.
Uh-huh.
My story is not sad.
No, my story is sad. It's the sad tale of the French toast that went uneaten by me. But I could have eaten it that morning. Like, if I had just known, if someone would have opened their mouth. And so that's twice in 8 months that my work has ordered special food on Wednesday instead of just the bagels I normally get. And twice I've had a problem. But the story of the other time is not interesting. So,
well, speaking of sad news, though, this is probably only sad not in a oh my god I'm gonna cry sense, but more in a wow, good god sense. So you might know this company called Mythwear. Now, if you don't, they make all those kind of tacky black bags with like a square picture of an anime character on the front or a Nerve logo or something.
When you go to an anime convention, the dealer's room, there's that one company that has like all these messenger bags with all sorts of different anime logos on them.
That's Mythwear.
That's them.
They license pretty much every property they can, and they make those. I mean, we've talked
like
before.
Those Nerve bags.
We've talked before about how, in general, I mean, actually, I think the Nerve bags are pretty cool, but
they're all right. That's probably the best bag they've got.
A lot of them, the FL Seal one's really good too.
It's okay.
But a lot of them are just like most American fan stuff is really kind of tacky. It's always like the black t-shirt with either just the text on it or like the square picture of the red dragon breathing fire.
Yep.
And like Emily got me a Japanese Ghost in the Shell shirt, and I feel weird using this word to describe this, but I think it's apt. It's a classy shirt.
It's pretty classy.
Japanese people get it and Americans don't, but it doesn't matter because the stuff sells. But anyway, Mythwear didn't go out of business, at least not officially or anything. They didn't blow anything up. They
didn't file for bankruptcy at some court.
They just disappeared. They're gone. They just suddenly stopped answering their phone. Their website's down. No one can get a hold of them. Right Stuff was like, all right, fine. We hereby rescind all licenses to you. And, yeah, what the hell, dudes?
Well, sometimes businesses just sort of disappear. It happens.
It doesn't happen that often, especially.
It doesn't happen that often, but I've seen it happen quite a few times in my life.
Name another time.
Usually, though, it involves shady businesses.
Well, this wasn't a shady business. Now, what I do want to say, a lot of people, you could take this any way. I saw one comment on the internet that was basically, oh no, oh my god, I really wanted a nerve bag, but I could never afford one, and now I'll never get one. This is the worst thing ever. But I could care less. Oh no, I can't buy semi-tacky black bags with anime characters on them anymore.
Oh
but
no.
I think this is a symptom of the general, non-professionalness of the American anime industry as a whole. One,
I do agree there's too much
the fact that Right Stuff was licensing all their stuff through this company that just disappeared and obviously was not the most together act to begin with. And the fact that this sort of thing can happen, I feel like, the industry is just not run the way it should be. And it's run by a lot of people who probably don't have a lot of business sense.
This is what happens when you get fans running things as opposed to business professionals. A lot of people would say, oh, business professionals would fuck over the fans and they do all these hard. Well, it's sort of like you need someone who is a fan and respects the actual thing that the business that they're doing and knows about the business, but also has business sense and is a professional. For example, look at, say, I'm just going to pick any random car company, right? To the people at the head of that car company, are they really like car nuts who really they watch Top Gear and they really love cars? Maybe some of them, but most of them are just CEOs who care about stock markets and business and all that stuff. And as a result, car companies not so appealing to the people who really like cars. But on the other hand, if you had, say, Joe from the local mechanics, being the president of Ford, right? He loves hot rods. Ford isn't going to make too much money, and it's going to be sort of shoddy. So you got to find someone who's got both, like the guys who run Google. They know about internet and technology and whatnot, and they respect it, but they also have business sense, and they're mad monies.
So if you wanted any of this Mythwear stuff, buy it from wherever you can get it, because even if they reappear or come back online or anything, to quote Right Stuff, additionally, all license agreements between Mythwear and Right Stuff concerning Right Stuff Nozomi Entertainment properties are considered canceled effective immediately.
Do they have there might be if this company comes back, if that revoking of license is not allowed under the contract, there might be some.
I have a feeling.
Though, that the company that disappears is not going to win a lawsuit, though.
Well, I imagine that they're already in breach of contract. But Right Stuff is fulfilling as many of the orders for this stuff that they already had as they can until they run out.
All right. So, Marvel Comics, all right? If you want to read them, you cannot. There's 3 ways to read them, right? 3 ways to read Marvel Comics legally. Ready? Way number 1. Well, actually, 4 ways. There are four ways to read Marvel Comics legally as of last week. Way number 1, you could buy paper monthly comic books in the comic book store, which is crap. 2, you can buy trade paperbacks. That is the preferred method by Scott. 3, you could non-legal way, you can pirate them from the internet. Get a BitTorrent full of every Marvel comic every week.
Yar!
And the fourth way, which is also a legal way, is to buy those DVDs that are every 400 issues of Spider-Man on DVDs in PDF format. Buy me in a box. Now, Marvel Comics has added one more legal way to read Marvel Comics on their website. Basically, they made this sort of comic reading application of sorts that lets you read panel by panel or zoom in and all this stuff. And
is it a good application?
I don't know. I haven't tried it. But it's sort of it's not, it's pretty DRM'd up. You can't get the comics and stuff, and you have to pay money. They're giving out free, certain comics are available as free samples, so you can check it out, and I'm probably check it out later, see if it works on Linux. Lol. But Yeah, if you go to their website, they have you can now read the comics digitally, and they're gonna let you pay more money to get access to a whole shit ton of comics digitally. Like, if you actually pay the money, it's really, I don't know how much money it is because I didn't look into this too much, but you can read, for example, the first 100 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, the first 100 issues of Fantastic Four, the initial 66 issues of Uncanny X-Men, the first 50 issues of the Avengers, more and more, etc., 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 and new stuff too. So you can read Runaways on there apparently, and even though I own that, all kinds of stuff. So if you want to read, if you've never read these comics and you like superhero underwear perfect comics, and you want to read a whole bunch of them on the cheap, this really isn't too bad if you don't mind doing it in front of the computer with this Marvel Comics.
See, that's the thing. I'd really have to be able to put it on if I owned one, an e-reader or something, or it wouldn't be worth it.
I'm sure. I guess if you might be able to, I think it's web-based, so maybe you could do it on an iPhone or something. I don't know. Or on a tablet PC.
But most people would have an e-reader if they're going to be reading any sort of e-thing.
Yep.
And if it doesn't work on an e-reader, while it's a step in the right direction, at the same time, it's not a step in the right direction.
Exactly. It's sort of like someone on our forum today posted some Wi-Fi radio playing device, which is a step in the right direction, but it wasn't over the line to where it actually becomes a useful, realistic thing. It was sort of half-assed, almost halfway there kind of deal. So this is sort of a halfway kind of deal. It's we recognize that comics on paper is the old way and comics digitally is the new way. Here's a sort of crappy digital comic thing, but that's sort of okay. So, I don't know. I'm going to check it out later, the free sample part, see how it is. There is definitely one thing. I think it's definitely in color, which is an advantage compared. I buy the big black books, like the big, essential whatever, right? Which is, I recommend them, actually. You can get, a shit ton of comics that are old for, $15. You can get, 30 issues of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, if you like that stuff and you have a train commute or something, well, there you go.
And one big black and white newsprint book, those big black ones you see on the shelf in the bookstore, right? But they're not in color. So if this is in color, it might actually be a better deal. I gotta look into it.
Well, we've been debating if I should still say things of the day. So I guess I kind of said it, but do you want me to keep saying it? Do you care? I'm curious.
Anyway.
I mean, people must care. Someone asked on Questions Week why I always say it, and the answer was, I just do. Though Scott just now refused to say it, so I don't know.
Anyway.
Things of the day. Things of the day. Things of the day.
All right, shut up. In 2007.
Things of the day.
I'm just not going to do the show.
All right, go on.
That's it. Show's over. All right. In 2007, this professor in France named Brigitte Koyoma Richard, who I guess if she must be part Japanese, part French, I guess, judging by her last name. Or maybe she just married a Japanese guy. I don't know. She wrote... Oh, she's a University of Tokyo professor, but she was French. Okay, I don't really understand that, but that's not the point. Anyway, she wrote this book, 1,000 Years of Manga. And the book covers the history of the manga, all the way from wall paintings in Japanese temples, all the way up to Naruto's and such.
Is this book in English, or at least Francais?
It's a 240-page hardcover book. And in February of 2008, the French publisher Flammarion
Vive le roi!
will release an English translation of this book, and I will buy it.
Good, because if you didn't, I was going to. We were talking
It
about...
will be $49.95.
Because for some reason lately, we've been talking about coffee table books a lot. And then, I made the analogy of coffee table games. And if ever there were a coffee table book that would go well in this house, it is that.
I don't know. There's that other one that's written by that Jason,
which I also want.
That cover, it's basically a book that contains a synopsis and the information on every manga published in the U.S. since he wrote it.
I imagine once we build the Geek House Mark II, our manor house somewhere with our millions, we'll, in the reading room, we'll have a selection.
Yeah. I have noticed, though, there's this increased trend of people writing, academic books, or at least publishing in English academic books about manga and anime and Japanese culture and all this stuff.
It's not like they could ignore it because it kind of swept America pretty quickly.
Kinda, but it's there's some other, you don't see, I guess you see some academic books about video games and stuff, and but it just seems like there's a bigger market for the academic books about the animes and the mangas than there is for the other nerdy things.
I don't know. I mean, I have seen several academic works on video games.
I have
Granted,
seen them.
most of them are studies trying to figure out if they cause violence or not.
Yeah. But I'm saying there seems to be a lot of them, and meant for the people who enjoy them, and I think that's good because I like those things. I think it's pretty cool to learn, sort of like the in-depth information about what you're reading instead of just getting, the thing you did the surface. You got to go deep. You got with your shovels.
So, what? Oh man! You said go deep. I realize now that I could have used that as a really good segue into my thing of the day.
Tough shit.
Go deeper. The path before you has been prepared.
All right.
Anyway, this is kind of a cop-out, but my rationale...
It's a super cop-out.
My rationale is thus. I'm done with using anything that's on the front page of Dig. I'm not just going to be... instead of things of the day for a long time, and we've been breaking from it when we can, it always seems to turn into Dig Video of the Day.
It does turn into Dig Video of the Day.
And I don't know, do you guys watch every Dig video that's good like we do, or do you not? Do you want us to keep doing that? Do you want us to be your filter, or can you filter yourselves?
Yeah.
But that aside, I realized that I'd never directly linked to this, and if I did, I couldn't find it. And way back, we did a show with the esteemed Jeff Tatarek about anime music videos, and I think I mentioned this as, in my opinion, one of the best overall anime music videos ever made. So thus, I'm linking you to the YouTube version of Night Owl Productions' Hit Me Baby One More Time.
It's Rim's favorite anime music video.
Now, the thing is, the reason I like it so much is that, one, I think it's expertly timed and expertly done. The only real thing you can say bad about it is that it was done, obviously, with old VHS copies of Utena, and there's artifacting galore. But in terms of the timing and the technicalness of it, that aside, I think it's almost perfect. And there's one little bit of humor that I think the guy or whoever did it just discovered he could put roses all over the screen and decided to make a joke about a penis.
It's actually, I think what's so great about this video is that it's sort of complex and that on the surface it is humorous. Like, lol.
Yeah.
But in reality, if you've seen Utena and you watch this video a few times, suddenly it's not humorous as much anymore. It's sort of like, whoa.
Yeah, in general, I'm a huge fan, and I know Scott is too, of anything that has, like, the more levels something has, the better. Like, an onion is the best thing in the world to us, I guess.
I mean, I guess it's got to be a bigger onion.
Well, there was the Onion Prince.
Oh, God.
And we know what happened to him.
But
I like it when something can work on a superficial level in that, I've never seen the thing this is referencing. I have no idea what it is. I'm seeing this in and of itself. And it is enjoyable and hilarious. And anime clubs that screen it will have people yelling and screaming because it is really funny.
Yep.
And really stupid and weird. But like Scott said, if you've seen the show, it's really well done and kind of disturbing, and it just brings back all these memories of the show, and you just kind of, at the end, you'll tell, the people who have seen Utena all the way through and the people who haven't are laughing, going, what the fuck is up with those cars? That was great. And at the end, they laugh because it's kind of a funny scene it ends on. But if you've seen the show, those people are just kind of sitting there going, oh man, that show was great.
Yeah.
So this is it. Watch it, enjoy it. If you don't like it, well, yeah. Die in a fire, and such.
All right.
I guess you can introduce this topic since you partook of this more than I have.
Well, I guess I know more about it, but today we're going to talk about the X-Mens.
AKA the Uncanny X-Men. X-Factor? Gonna talk about X-Factor? How about X-Force?
Nope.
How about just the X-Men?
Yes.
Is there any other X-Men we should talk about?
There's plenty. Excalibur.
X-Force.
See, that's what happens. You're from the 90s. We're both, mostly, I mean, we were born in the 82, but, our real culture came from the late 80s, early 90s, towards the middle of the 90s. So that was, all those different X's were definitely artifacts of the early 90s, and that is the X-Men we know best. However...
Yeah. I mean, I can tell my story of X-Men because it's much shorter than Scott's, but I can say that we're definitely in the...
Well, let me start telling, the history, I guess, in a very short way. Okay, so you had Stan Lee back in the day.
He wrote comics about things in bold.
You're right. So he wrote X. It was just X-Men. It wasn't Uncanny X-Men yet, right? It was just X-Men, and I think he wrote 66 issues, if I'm not mistaken, or something along those lines, right? And then they reprinted them for a while, and then so they kept making more numbers of X-Men. Like the number kept going up, but they were all reprints. And eventually, then John Byrne and I forget his name. They took over. X-Men. Claremont, right? Claremont and Byrne, and that's the X-Men that everyone knows and loves. Is like the Dark Phoenix and the Days of Future Past and all that. God Loves Man Kills. That was all Claremont and Byrne. So when you hear someone talking about Byrne X-Men or Claremont Byrne X-Men, they're talking about the real X-Men, at least what most people consider to be the real deal X-Men, and that went on. And then, like, they changed the name to Uncanny X-Men and stuff like that. And they kept going. And then, I guess, in the early 90s when we were kids, they came out with Adjectiveless X-Men and all those other X books. And then it went crazy. And I don't understand. Don't ask me what's doing with X-Men today. I have no idea.
The last X-Men I read was when Phalanx appeared.
I didn't. That was after I stopped reading.
Yeah, but remember, I didn't start until... All right, so...
I started with Adjectiveless X-Men #1. However, the first time I ever encountered the X-Men, right, was like someone else had like a coloring book of X-Men, and I got it from them, and I didn't know what the fuck the X-Men were. I was like, what the hell is this coloring book? And I never drew in it. And then sort of around the same time, like I started reading X-Men comics, starting with Adjectiveless X-Men #1, and then... also watching X-Men cartoon on Fox.
Oh, we'll get to that.
And I saw the first X-Men live-action movie that was recent, but I did not like it.
My first experience, because my parents, especially my mom and her brother, my uncle, were actually really into comics as kids. And actually, my uncle has, I think, almost all of the Fantastic Four, like from 1 on, because he just read it. But and they have all these old comics everywhere, and they also have a bunch of Mad magazines, but that's beside the point. So... they didn't really understand why I was just not into comics. I didn't know about them, didn't care about them, had zero interest.
I knew about comic books, and I was just completely disinterested
You know
in
what I
them
knew?
altogether.
I knew that they were this thing that all the kids in school were really into, and I just thought it was stupid.
See, here's the thing: is I knew about comic books. Like I would see, like the stereotypical, like I watched Dennis the Menace cartoon on TV, and he'd have like a comic book, right? And I knew kids read comics, just like I knew kids skateboarded.
Yeah, but the thing is,
no one I knew
I read
skateboarded.
Peanuts.
All right, but no one I knew skateboarded or read comics. And eventually, a kid who lived down the street from me was reading comics. So I read some of them, and that's when I started reading them because someone else was like, I got to read them without having to pay for them.
See,
and
my
then
mom
a comic
went out.
shop opened in the mall, and then the business exploded.
My mom went out and tried to get me into comics, so she bought me this X-Men board game. I think you all remember it. It was the one that came with all those gray plastic figures. And, all right, I got this X-Men game. And it came with an X-Men comic, and I'm looking through it, and the comic was, all right, there's this blue guy and this guy with oh my god, he's got laser beams coming out of his eyes, huh?
The best guy that no one else likes but me.
I'm indifferent to him.
All right.
And between that and the X-Men TV series, that's
Fox cartoon.
the best X-Men ever, in my opinion.
The only X-Men that is video that is worth watching.
I got into it, and then I went and got back issues of the Executioner's Song. I don't know why. Like, someone told me to get into that, and I read that. And it was okay. I liked it. I don't remember much about what happened, except at the end, Professor X could walk, but then he couldn't again for some reason.
Yeah. I believe that, if I remember correctly, that's where there was like some horrible virus that killed mutants, and there was a guy who looked like Cable that wasn't Cable.
Yeah, and
time travel.
Cable,
that's all I know.
Cable was my man.
Was he?
Cable was my favorite
X-Men.
X-Men.
Hate the Cable.
Why? Cable was awesome.
Yeah, because that was like that 90s stuff that people want to forget about.
Yeah, remember, our era of X-Men is like Cyclops and Storm and Wolverine and Cable and Bishop and all that.
Yeah, well, just to the little comics history here, right? In the early 90s is when comics exploded. That's when there were comic book stores everywhere, and the death of Superman and all this business going on with foil covers and Image Comics and all this stuff. That comics exploded, and people were trying to make money off of them, and the comic book guy sort of stuff was all over the place. And and what happened was people were making a lot of what most people most of the comics they were making those days were pretty bad, and it was pretty much just a rush on money and collecting and speculating and printing way too many comics, and people paying way too much money for a comic with a foil cover.
I remember when Cyclops and Jean Grey got married.
Yeah,
and
I have that in my room.
I do. I also own it. I have 2 copies of it because don't ask me why.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, that kind of stuff. And people nowadays look on that time as like a dark age in a way, and that happened to be the age of us reading comics because of the year in which we happen to be born.
Except I did other than the Executioner's song and sporadic, because the thing is, at that point, I was like, all right, I can dig this. I'm going to try to get into this. And then every X-Men I got didn't follow from the last one. And then someone was like, oh, you got to read this and this and this and this. And I said, what? What the fuck? God, never mind. Just forget it.
Yep. Yeah, so let me do a little synopsis of what X-Men is about in case someone doesn't know what X-Men is about. So you have this world of people, a lot like the real world. But in this world, some people are mutants. And it does, sometimes it means they're horrible monsters like the Beast or something, but most of the time they look like every other person.
I submit that the blue-haired Beast is a lot less horrible and ugly looking than the human-looking Beast.
The original human-looking Beast?
Who was just kind of weird looking.
Well, have you seen the Cat Beast?
No, I haven't.
I'll show it to you later.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, a lot of people have changed the design of the Beast over the years in different comics. But anyway, they, and some people, they're born randomly, just genetic mutation. They're mutants, which means there's something weird about them. And usually, they get a superpower. Sometimes the superpower is kind of useless, but sometimes it's more useful. Like, you could be like Wolverine, who can heal crazily, making him almost invincible, and also have claws, and also be a badass.
And also, unrelated to all that, has an adamantium skeleton.
Yes, that wasn't because of a mutation, as far as I know.
Yeah,
they keep changing that story.
Ripped out of him by Magneto, but yet he could still use his bone claws, and yeah.
That was a big reveal. And then you have other people like Cyclops, who has eye lasers, or Colossus, who can just make armor, or Professor X, who was a telepath.
I heard something that Colossus was gay.
I don't know. Maybe.
There was a news article or something about
Wasn't
that.
he in love? I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't read them anymore, so what do I know?
I only like Colossus because in the game, his power was basically knock everybody down.
In the X-Men arcade game, Colossus, best character.
Yeah, his power was knock everyone down, and he was bigger than everyone else.
Yep.
That's all that mattered.
Cyclops is the second best because you could stay far away from the bad guys and still hit them.
And also, nothing moves the Blob except Cyclops, who moves him easily.
Easily. So, yeah, in the X-Men, you had this world where there's mutants. Some people are mutants, some people aren't. And the mutants are treated poorly, much like African Americans were treated poorly in the U.S. And it's such a blatant, obvious metaphor. And that was what they were trying to write, was like, look, it's discrimination. Let's make a comic about discrimination, using the mutants to symbolize, all the minorities of all that have ever been discriminated against.
And
right?
in a stroke of kind of genius, the X-Men are going to form, and there's all these characters, but the leader of the X-Men, Professor X, they decided to make him handicapped, and there was people made a big deal about that when the comic was when we saw this, and because people didn't expect in some kind of superhero comic that there'd be a man in a wheelchair who is kind of the main superhero.
Yeah, he's wicked powerful in his brain, but his legs don't work.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's probably the most powerful.
Maybe.
Except Magneto.
Yeah.
And Jean Grey, but that's a spoiler.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So the story is that basically the mutants were discriminated against, but Professor X was a powerful mutant who was also very popular and was, in with the government. He was a famous professor. So he says, I'm going to make a school in Salem, New York, which is sort of a real place that I kind of, and he's going to build a mansion there, and it's going to be a school for gifted youngsters. And basically, all these young kids who are mutants and their parents don't want to deal with them will bring them to the school and dump them there. And he will raise them and teach them to control their powers and raise them to be good people.
And then give them spandex, make them superhero underwear perverts, and send them around fighting evil.
Yeah. Sort of, but that wasn't part of the original plan, I don't think, but it happened anyway, because Magneto, Professor X's colleague, he had a different idea, because Professor X is always saying, mutants and humans could live in peace together, we don't have to keep fighting.
And Magneto, partly because he was, concentration camp action messed him up.
Yeah, because he was Mad Jew action. He
was a Mad Jew who had Mad Jew action.
Right. Magneto, the mutant Jew, he was in the concentration camp, whatever. And
His power had nothing to do with Judaism. His power was to control metal, hence Magneto.
Yeah, he's basically like he is a sentient magnet that is basically has infinite magnet power, or all incredibly ludicrously high magnet power.
And he decided,
like he could slow down the spin of the Earth. Like in one comic, he just shut electricity off on the entire Earth.
he pretty much decided that, 1, humans will eventually fight to destroy mutants because they fear them. 2, mutants are superior and should use that power to control the world and make it better. And 3, the easiest way to make the world better in the end is to get rid of all the humans.
Kill all humans. Kill
Hey,
all
Hot Mama,
humans.
you want to kill all the humans?
Hey, Hot Mama, wanna kill all humans?
Hey, Hot Scott, you want to say the exact same thing I just said?
Wanna steal my joke?
I said it first.
Which I stole from Futurama?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
And that's, if for anyone who doesn't know, that's the story of the X-Men.
Yeah,
I'm not
give or
going to go
take.
into any more details
Bunch
than
of
that.
fighting. Rogue has some emotional issues. Cyclops is all cocky.
There's a whole bunch of characters. and
Jubilee is all. Sabretooth is the fucking man.
the whole thing sort of just plays out like most Marvel comics of the day, like a soap opera, you know? There's some status quo, you know, of these people are good and these people are bad, and, you know, time after time, crazy stuff happens.
Time after time.
No, don't say that. So, you know, someone's a villain, someone else is doing something crazy over there, something over here, crazy stuff's happening, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
Everything is
randomly, we're all getting into our SR-71 Blackbird and going into space, but oh shit, something happens.
Yeah, and crazy stuff happens, and then return to the status quo. And then crazy stuff happens, return to the status quo. And that's all the X-Men is, really. So what else do you want to say about the X-Men?
I don't know. The only X-Men I actually liked was the Fox cartoon, because it was just the right thing for me at that age, and I think it was, in general, less melodramatic and better written than most X-Men comics.
Yeah, definitely, but I think that the X-Men cartoon, if watched today, I'm not so sure it would hold up. I mean,
There are a few
I'm the
episodes
Juggernaut, bitch.
that I think would. In particular, I mean, none of that
What the fuck
space
is this
stuff.
shit,
but-
Charles?
What the? Oh, my helmet! And this shit's in 4th grade. What the fuck is this shit? Okay.
Anus.
Hey,
Anus.
I hope you know what we're referring to. I'm not gonna.
Anus, Charles. Anus.
You can find it on your own, your big boys and girls.
Yeah.
But there's a few episodes, like the one where they go into Rogue's backstory. I think that was handled very well in the cartoon.
I don't remember any of it well enough. All I remember is that it was the one cartoon that I watched every single week without missing it for a long time, and then I eventually missed one.
Very few cartoons had that power over me ever in my life, especially as a
That
kid.
was the only one.
For me, it was that and Mask, M.A.S.K. It was better than Transformers. You can all fuck off.
Whatever. What do you know?
Not counting the Transformers movie.
Which one?
I think that is obvious.
I know, but there's two now, so you gotta.
Let's see. There's one that made me cry, and there's one that had far more humans in it than it needed and far less robots than it should have had.
But you didn't see that second one.
Because I know better.
All right.
And the Zelda cartoon. I mean, I like the Mario show, the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, despite the fact that, in retrospect, that was one of the worst cartoons ever made.
Not as bad as the Link cartoon.
The Link cartoon is so much better than that.
No, it's not as terrible.
The only problem with
It's
it is that
so bad.
as Emily pointed out, it exemplifies the 80s child. Because, you know, there's like the 90s child, which is Zach Morris. I'm too cool for school. Check me out. Oh, man, I'm so cool. Got spiky hair. Bart Simpson was kind of a part of that, too.
Yeah, it was.
The 80s child was, well, excuse me. I'm a snotty little blah. You're not the boss of me, yeah.
Problem child.
Yeah. Oh, don't. You know, Problem Child was a pretty terrible movie, but it's got nothing on the worst movie ever made, which is Clifford. I believe it involves Martin Short playing a 10-year-old boy. I'll leave it at that.
I never saw or heard of that movie.
It is the worst movie ever made. I will stand by that statement to the grave.
Even worse than Mono's Hands of Fate.
Mono's Hands of Fate is kind of awesome because it went around full circle and became awesome. It was
Even
so
worse
bad.
than the worst anime there is.
At least I can get it. There is no enjoyment to be had. You know how some things are so bad that they become awesome?
Yeah.
This is so bad, but not that bad. It's just bad enough to be completely without redeeming qualities.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, it's one of the few movies I ever just said, fuck it, and turned it off, and never saw how it ended.
All right, so we decided to do a show on X-Men, yet we're failing to find more to say about them.
Because there's not that much to say. I don't like it that much.
The
It's
thing is, it's weird. It's like, I like the characters in X-Men, most of the characters anyway, some more than others, right?
Of all the...
And when I was a kid, I read and enjoyed X-Men, and the X-Men I read as a kid, I now know is pretty bad, right? Compared to like, now I can buy those big black books I talked about
I think one thing
earlier.
is the X-Men we read, the character designs, of all the superhero underwear pervert stuff.
And those are the costumes that the underwear pervert fans hate the most, are the ones that we had.
But yet, those underwear perverts, not counting like Watchmen or all the, more erudite superhero things, I like those character designs. I don't know why. They're not like the super muscly crap we see sometimes, and they're not so spandexy and stupid compared to later ones, and they're not so lame compared to earlier ones. I kind of like that aesthetic.
Yeah, I still identify the X-Men. When I think about X-Men, I always think about those, adjectiveless X-Men #1 Fox cartoon costumes that all the fans
Scott
seem to hate.
Summers doesn't wear a stupid helmet. He wears cool sunglasses.
Yep.
Or the Geordie LaForge kind of thing. And his hair's always out.
Well, he wears the wide visor thing when he's going to be in battle, but he wears the red sunglasses, the ruby sunglasses, when he's just walking around
and he
town.
never just rips the ruby sunglasses off like, oh man.
Someone always takes them off his face, and then he goes, "What the fuck did you do?" Bang!
Or he's always all cool. He just kind of like glances over him like, bzzz. You see what I did there?
That's more like what Superman does when he's using his heat vision, but he's Clark Kent right now, and he's like, I need to use heat vision while I'm Clark Kent. Bzzz. Anyway. So yeah, I do like a lot of
and Angel was a total wuss who turned into Archangel, who was badass but sad.
Yeah. Actually, I like the villains in X-Men a lot more than I like the
Apocalypse,
heroes.
My man.
No, it's all about Magneto and Mr. Sinister.
Mr. Sinister.
I mean, he's just so sinister.
Sinistar?
No. But in general, I like the X-Men. I like the characters in the X-Men. I have nostalgia for it, and I did enjoy it reading it when I was a kid and all. And I read some older X-Men comics now, and some aspects of those are still enjoyable, but some are still kind of hard to get through because they're so old and corny. And it's kind of sad that nowadays it's impossible for me to really read X-Men or find any new X-Men that I can enjoy, because it's like all the X-Men comics are so like convoluted and twisted, and like the X-Men that I knew and loved are no longer the X-Men. They're all different people, and there's all these extra characters in there, and this crazy stuff happened. And in order for me to figure it out, I'd have to read like years and years and years worth of these comics of varying quality, and and what I would eventually get to, even if I understood the new stuff, it's not really what I want, and it's kind of sad that there was like this thing, and now it's not there anymore. It's like this void almost of there's a thing I could enjoy, but no one's making it right. I don't know. There's that Ultimate X-Men, but I don't really know what to think about that Ultimate stuff. It's sort of weird.
I've pretty much given up. I'm going to stick to reading that one Batman comic I didn't read yet, and
yeah,
that's pretty much it at this point.
But in general, if you have never read X-Men comics, or maybe you don't think you've read like the important X-Men comics, go to the store. And the big black books I've mentioned for the third time this episode. Get a copy of Essential X-Men #2. Not Essential Uncanny X-Men #2. That's the Stan Lee stuff. Essential X-Men #2 is the Claremont Burns stuff. And that one big black book has all the X-Men comics that you need to read in your entire life. So get that black book. It's like between $10 and $20. You could probably get it on Amazon pretty cheap. I'll even look it up while I'm talking. And that is all the X-Men you need to read. And I do recommend that anyone who cares about comics should probably read it. I mean, it's got all those important kind of stories. And there's a bit of corniness, but not as much corniness as some older comics, and it's good stuff. And then you'll see, the X-Men and why, if you don't understand why people like the X-Men now, if you read this, I think you will understand why people enjoyed the X-Men back in the day. Oh, it's $12 on Amazon. In fact, it's $11.55. Come on. You got to buy that.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to Geeknights at frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.